So, I said I was going to be doing this a little while ago on a poll where I asked everybody, do you want to see me cover my biggest L in the debate I've ever had? And the overwhelming majority of people said yes. So, that's what we're going to finally be doing right now. It's taking a little while to get to it because I've had some stuff going on and everything in person. But yeah, we're going to go over it. I'm going to be very harsh on myself because of the fact that I hold myself to a very high standard when it comes to debating. And yeah, if you like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, do all that kind of shizzle, and let's just get started. And for context on what this debate was about, it is specifically, I think this is the one where I kind of went over abortion is not immoral because, for context, I am a egoist, which basically means that I don't believe in morality, period. That's just for context on what my background is in terms of my views and what I'm actually arguing for. It's an act that you can commit, and I personally am neutral towards it because I'm an egoist.
If you're saying it's neutral, well, you're saying it isn't wrong. What do you mean by isn't wrong?
I don't believe in the concept of right or wrong. Like I said, yeah. Morality exists outside of the mind. Therefore, there's no reason to really follow it or adhere to it.
So where does morality come from?
The brain?
From the brain?
Yeah.
Can you locate where in the brain?
I don't know. It's a made-up concept. This is before, I believe, I came up with my criteria of, my two criteria, that is, of morality. Prove it exists independent of the mind, and prove it has some sort of enforcement mechanism that isn't just another person with X moral framework. Those are my two criteria to prove morality exists and prove it has any kind of weight regarding why it should be able to control me the way it controls so many other people, including making people act against their own self-interest. All I can really say.
Concept, why do we all have it?
Not all of us have it. I don't have it.
So you don't have morals?
No, I don't. I'm an egoist, as it says on the little picture right there.
So what's your thoughts on...
Also, by the way, this is from a TikTok debate. That's what I'm referring to with the picture. A little prompt picture thingy.
Like, people who are attracted to minors.
I'm disgusted by it, but because I can't...
That's a moral objection, dude.
Well, no, saying I'm disgusted by it isn't a moral objection.
Why are you disgusted by it?
Because I'm disgusted by it. I don't like it.
Why don't you like it?
Why do I need a reason to?
Because
that's a good move. Yes, I agree with myself there. You don't really need a reason to justify not liking child predators or whatever like that, right? If like, here's the thing I believe when it comes to like using logic to condemn something. If you need logic to be able to condemn something as right or wrong, then that means you can be convinced that it can be right or wrong, such as needing logic to be able to justify hating child predators. If you need logic and logic only to be able to condemn that, that means there is a chance that you could be convinced that there's logic out there that actually can defend them and make it morally right to be a child predator. That's at least how I see it. I think the concept of using pure logic to be able to condemn that stuff is pretty stupid and can lead people to actually liking it if somebody comes along with too sound of logic, too convincing of logic to be able to argue in favor of that kind of stuff. Can you define what morals is real quick?
So morals are the inherent right and wrong that are within us, that we spiritually know are right and wrong.
Spiritually know according to what?
According to, so, okay, this is going to go a lot into deeper things, but...
Do you want to stick on abortion specifically, or do you kind of want to go into more like the grand meta thing? We can do either one.
Oh, you just denied
meta
yourself.
Ethics.
You said you don't have morals and you don't believe.
Well, yeah, I have empathy, I have feelings, but I don't believe feelings are morals.
So you kind of proved yourself wrong, man.
No, I think we might just be operating on different definitions of morality, because I see morality as this concept or ideas or frameworks that dictate. I think that was a pretty good move on my end, trying to be able to get us on the same page, because something that I've noticed with a lot of debates in the past, not even just mine, but in general, whether it's the gender debate, whether it's the socialism versus communism versus capitalism debate, people keep operating on different definitions of different words, and that basically leads people to speaking past each other, getting frustrated, and nothing ever really goes anywhere because of it. So personally, I personally like to set definitions from the outset, so we're at least arguing on the same page and can't talk past each other. And wrong, good and evil, all these concepts which I don't think actually exist or have any enforcement mechanism, therefore I don't adhere to any of it.
So you don't believe in good and evil?
No, I don't.
So there's nothing good and bad?
From a moral perspective, no. Is there things that act against my self-interest or for my self-interest? Yes. I like things that are for my self-interest and don't like things against my self-interest.
So why are
Let me
you
speed this up,
why do you
actually.
have a problem with people attracted to minors if that doesn't affect you personally?
Let me put it in a biological perspective. I see somebody attracted to minors or doing something messed up to minors. There's a neurological thing that goes on in my head, which makes me disgusted and grossed out by it. I
I
stand
can't
by
really
this.
explain
Explain where that comes from. All I know is that I hate it. Does that make sense?
So you see, it's like basic preservation. Well, it wouldn't even
I
be
guess
that
you can
because
say that,
doesn't
possibly.
affect you though. That doesn't affect you. So why would you care? You
Well,
see,
it does.
there's an underlying issue here that
Well, it doesn't affect me. Generally, I can't.
Apparently a part of human beings.
Generally, I do care, but the issue is I can't do anything about it most of the time. Therefore, I don't really acknowledge it. But when it does come across my way, I condemn it wholeheartedly. I have empathy, but I just don't believe in the concepts of right and wrong.
Well, you just prove that you feel it to be wrong deep down inside.
It's not that I feel it to be wrong, it's that I feel it to be gross. Not that
Again, we're arguing on different pages, and it's because he is rooted in Christianity, and that's you'll see where I go in to get a massive L in terms of how I handled this debate, especially near like the middle, I believe.
it's wrong because I don't believe in wrong.
So what does it mean by being gross then? It doesn't make sense.
Because it's gross. That's just the way I describe it.
You're saying it's gross because it's gross? That doesn't really explain your train of thought, man.
Well, I literally just told you how it worked brain-wise, but generally speaking, let me tell you where my priorities stem from. They stem from self-interest, which basically means things that are in my favor or work in my self-interest, I like. Things that work against it, I don't like. And I don't like predators and stuff like that. It disgusts me, so therefore it's against my self-interest.
Why do you have a whole topic about abortion if this isn't about this has nothing to do with you? Like, this doesn't affect you or the way you're living at the moment.
Because it's fun.
So you're arguing on a topic that you have no care for and no interest and no like logical reasoning?
Yeah, it's fun.
I do
So it's
also
just like
stand
for
by that. I just debate for fun. The moment it isn't, I'm gonna be quitting.
attention for you?
Yeah, welcome to TikTok. That's the entire point of this platform, isn't it? Getting attention.
No, man. You really need to do some. You just like need to look down inside yourself, and you really need to think more about why you believe what you believe. You need
Well,
to
I do
stop
believe.
being
I do know why I believe what I believe. It's because morality
Because
doesn't
you're
exist
selfish.
outside of the mind. What was that?
It's because you're selfish. You only care about yourself.
Well, yeah, everybody does.
No, you can be selfless. There are people who are selfless. Who
They're
probably-
selfless.
I don't believe in that concept, by the way. Altruism, I even believe altruism is rooted in self-interest at the end of the day, so
Because they think it's in their best interest to do so from a psychological perspective. But regardless, I'm not against the concept of like
That's not-
altruism
people
or whatever.
Give money to homeless people because it's in their best interest.
Psychologically, yes. If you walk by a homeless person, don't give them $1, you're probably gonna feel like shit for the rest of the day. Or at least for some people it
You
is.
care about other people's views if you're self-centered.
Well, I don't. I just like debating for fun.
But that's the thing. Why are they giving money?
Oh, I'm sorry. What was the question that you were asking me for?
Well, I asked you about the homeless people, and you said, well, because they'll feel bad if they don't. But if you're selfish and you don't care what others think, why would that affect you?
Well, I mean, it's not affecting me personally, but some people it'll affect them more than me.
But that's the basic thing. Is there's people who do things that do not help them to help others. Like
Well, it
this.
does help them psychologically, like I said. If it helps.
for reference, I consider myself something called a psychological hedonist, which basically means I believe that people inherently act from a self-interest perspective. Or, no, that's psychological egoism. What I believe regarding psychological hedonism is that people act in ways that basically either you're doing something to maximize some form of pleasure or you're trying to avoid some form of pain. And I do believe that there is biological and neurological evidence that actually backs this. That's a whole other thing to be able to go into, though. But yeah, that's basically how I fundamentally believe humans act from a foundational level. Either maximize pleasure or avoid pain. And people will give money to the homeless to be able to avoid the pain of walking home the rest of the day thinking, oh man, I didn't help that guy out. He must be suffering. Oh my gosh, that's going to be eating at my conscience all day.
Helps you psychologically to sleep better at night, to help out somebody or donate to charity, then you're going to do that, and it's going to benefit you mentally speaking, because there is more to your self-interest than just the material wealth that you have that a lot of people kind of mix up as whatever their self-interest is.
Why are there people who like martyr themselves, like sacrifice themselves on behalf of others? Like that doesn't go for their self-interest.
Let me cite a story real quick that I heard a little while ago about a fireman who saved a little girl from a burning building. So he saved the little girl from a burning building, and then you have this reporter walking up to him asking, why would you go and sacrifice yourself to do that? And what he said was, I wouldn't be able to live myself if I let her burn in there alive. People will go and sacrifice themselves for other people or put themselves at a detriment because the alternative of living with that burden can negatively affect them pretty badly. And we have kind of seen that before as far as I'm aware. But yeah, in that case, that would also just be in self-interest of their psyche.
Man, how did you get this worldview? Where did this worldview come from? Like, what made you think of all of this? This is pretty bizarre, man.
Max Stirner is probably the guy who's influenced me the most on my egoist views.
He's a like ex-young Hegelian guy, was friends with like Marx, Engels, all of those guys, and then he kind of burned the bridge when he wrote his book, The Ego, or The Ego in Its Own, or as the translation that I read, which is more accurate, The Unique in Its Property. Just as a reference as to who exactly that guy is.
Is that like your masculine role model?
Role model? Not necessarily, but I've read a fair amount of his theory and I generally align with it,
Like,
especially
who do you look up to? Who's like your figure, your masculine figure in life?
I don't really look up to anybody anymore,
How come?
just because I don't really need to.
So what do you do for fun?
Talk online, do combat sports, I do jujitsu and Muay Thai and stuff like that, play video games.
So I, so
I'm a
the
normal
whole
person.
This abortion thing is to just bother people.
The whole point of this abortion thing is to have fun. I debate for fun. Do you want to debate it or nah?
Well, clearly it seems like you have a disingenuous view. You don't really care about it. You're just using it to provoke people.
Well, I'm using it to all.
Welcome to TikTok, am I right? That's what everybody's fucking doing. They're trying to be provocative, they're trying to get attention, they're trying to be able to get those donations and views and stuff like that. I'm just playing the game.
So talk about egoism as well, because it doesn't seem like anybody really wants to talk about morality very much on this platform for some reason. Everybody seems to love abortion. I don't know why. It's so weird. I'm new to this platform. I'm still trying to get used to who debates what and what's the most popular topic, and everybody just seems to debate LGBT rights, they debate abortion, and they debate Trump, and that's virtually it. So I was like, why not try switching out morality for abortion this time?
Well, what I really say to you, brother, is I really hope that you can open your heart to Jesus Christ, man.
Well, okay, do you want to talk about religion then? I can talk about religion.
Open your heart to God.
This is where I start fucking floundering pretty badly. I start going into religion, and you'll see exactly where I completely fall off a cliff in terms of my rhetoric, in terms of my confidence. Dunning-Kruger effect kind of shows.
We can talk about religion.
Yeah, man, we can talk about it.
Okay,
What's-
because I used to be a Christian, and then I realized that there's not really any kind of logical reason to believe in God, let alone any gods. But I will say this before you interrupt me. I don't see any reason to be an atheist either, because I see both as necessarily two sides of the same coin, which is why I'm a strong agnostic, and I argue against both Christians and atheists, or theists and atheists, I mean.
So what turned you away from Christ? Did you have an emotional experience?
No, it's just kind of like thinking over the course of a couple years. I just kind of thought about it. I haven't seen any evidence for or against it, so it's kind of like maybe there's a Jesus. Not maybe there's a Jesus. Jesus existed historically, but maybe there's a God. Maybe there isn't. I don't know. So I'm just withholding belief until I see proof for or against any kind of God's
So,
existence.
Real quick, when you said you were a Christian, what does that mean to you? What did being a Christian mean to you at the time you were?
I identify as a Christian. I believed in God. I went to church. That's pretty much how my entire childhood was going
What
into
does
high school and
believing in
past high
God mean
school.
to you? Like, what does it mean to be a Christian? Does it just mean to go to church and believe that there's a God?
I would say probably in terms of being a Christian, having a relationship with God, thinking God's like your, how do you put it? Like best friend, I guess you can say. I don't really know necessarily how to word it off the top of my head since I'm not a super religious kind of guy, but it's generally forming that relationship with God that Christians really like to emphasize because a lot of them say it's not a religion, it's a relationship with God. So
I don't know, man. It doesn't seem like you really, not to like judge you, but it just doesn't sound like you really learned that much about Christianity. And what I want to tell you, man.
well, I haven't talked about Christianity in a while, so but there's no offense taken, don't worry about it. It's just that I haven't really seen any evidence for or against it, so I kind of just fell out of it.
So here's basically the thing, though, man. So God came down in human form,
Mhm.
which basically Jesus. He was the Word. The Word was with God, and then the Word was God. The Word was with God. The Word was God, and the Word became flesh, and that flesh was Jesus Christ. And what he did is he came and he preached the coming of Christ
Mhm.
himself. And what happened?
It's hard
was
to
he
even
was
listen
punished
back
for
to
that.
this right
They
now. I'm
didn't
not
like that
gonna
he
lie. I
was
really
saying he
hate
was Christ.
Christian
They're like, hey,
preaching.
the Christ is supposed to be this great warrior who comes to save us all, but he was peaceful and he was calling against like rebelling against the Romans and all that.
Mhm.
They're like, this isn't what we want the Christ to be, and so we're gonna persecute him. And what they did was they ended up getting the Romans to crucify him. And he never fought back. All he did was he healed people. He spread the truth. He showed the flaws with the religious groups at the time, which there's a lot of flaws with our religious groups nowadays.
Mhm.
And he was crucified on behalf of our sins. And through his blood, if we accept his grace, we are healed by Christ. So all it really takes is to you to open up your heart and realize, hey, I'm not good enough on my own to be saved. You need to humble yourself down. You need to open your heart and believe, hey, Christ, I need you to save me. I need you to help open my heart and guide me.
Okay,
And
so
that's-
why should I
that's
open
the-
my heart after like a decade of trying, especially considering I have anxiety over the concept of death and was searching for meaning
I
in
still
life for a
do.
while? Why should I suddenly
Thing,
change my
like you
mind and try
said,
to
you had
search
anxiety over
God?
death, right?
Yes.
The whole thing is so basically the wages of our sin is death. However, through Jesus' death on the cross and his sin, death no longer reigns over us. Because if we truly believe, if we open up our heart, we accept Jesus and his grace, death has no dominion over us. And through Jesus, we have eternal life. There's no death to fear because your fleshly death will be rewarded with spiritual paradise.
Why should I believe anything you've just said?
Because if you really look at the logical evidence and all the books we have, it logically, historically
boy.
adds up.
Which books
And-
for Jesus' resurrection in specific?
So we have books written hundreds to thousands of years before Jesus depicting his resurrection and what he will do. And then we have the books from eyewitnesses describing what actually happened.
Which books from eyewitnesses? Are you talking about the gospel?
So we could talk about the gospel. We could talk about prophets before Jesus.
What I should have done here is say, considering there's over like 40,000 different denominations and supposed non-denominations of Christianity, these books can be interpreted various different ways. They could be whatchamacallit. You can really stretch the logic that, oh, this book predicted Jesus. Oh, this book said this. This book predicted this and that and that, kind of like Nostradamus kind of shit. I should have went down that route, but instead I went down the worst route I possibly could have with this debate, and you're gonna see that in a few minutes. Hopefully, I'm not sure how far into debate it is. I haven't watched this in a little bit, but you will see that I go down the worst route possible regarding this topic.
Describe what Jesus came to do. We could talk about historians at the time who also relate what the Christians believed. And we could talk about the early church and how through persecution they were able to rise up and the word is still spread to this very day.
What books are you talking about exactly? You're kind of being vague on that, especially regarding Jesus' resurrection.
So if you want to know the very specific details, I'd say the best book for you to read is the book of Luke. But Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Do you know who wrote them?
They describe it. Yeah.
Who?
Luke, Matthew, and John.
Do you really think there were people named Luke, Matthew, and John during Jesus' time?
Yeah, John's actually a very common name at the time. That's why there's like 5 different Johns during the time of Jesus in the Bible.
You know those books were written decades after Jesus' resurrection, and we don't know who the authors actually are, right?
That's not true.
No, that's not true. No.
At the most, they were written 40 to 50 years after Jesus' life. But
So
if you
they-
look at other historical accounts of the time,
Well, I did say decades after, first of all, and second of all, we don't have any actual names. They were plastered on after the fact, and also the fact that, like I said, they were anonymous. They were hearsay of hearsay. None of the actual authors actually witnessed these. There's inconsistencies between each book that I can't really think of off the top of my head. You'd have to ask Alex O'Connor about that.
That is where I completely fell off the ball. I admitted I talked about biblical inconsistencies. I already admit from the outset that it's not my specialty, and you have to kind of talk to a guy named Alex O'Connor, who is like a agnostic atheist kind of guy, very well versed in the Bible. But what I end up doing is I end up going down the biblical contradictions route anyways, and completely fumbling the ball on it.
There's just no direct evidence of it actually happening that has been verified by anything other than the gospel. And as I've said before, there's no reason to trust them since they were written anonymously.
I
You
do
know?
stand by that.
like I said, man, first of all, you need to open your heart because it seems like you're very disingenuous. Like you're not really.
What's disingenuous about what I said regarding we don't know who wrote the
What you're
gospel?
going off of right now is what scholars said. From I can tell you haven't done the research yourself. You haven't looked. If
Okay.
You know, in the first century, autobiographies were not common.
Okay, so does that negate the fact that we don't know who they were?
He made a story about one of the wars, and he never wrote his name on it. Yet we know Julius Caesar wrote it because back then people didn't write their names on it. We know now that it was John, Matthew, Mark, Luke who wrote those, but at the time they didn't write their name.
No, we literally plastered them on after the fact. The Roman Church, I think it was the Catholics did.
But it was written by them. And then
No, we still don't know the actual names of the guys. Those weren't known at the time. And those are like white names too. Those are like modern names. I don't think there was anybody named John 2,000 years ago.
I think that's actually been proven wrong as well, that I just said there. I think I looked into it after the fact a little bit later, and it turns out that that those names did exist at the time. That was a really stupid move on my end. I mean, it sounds like it makes sense from a common sense standpoint, but at the same time, it looks like those names actually did exist at the time, so that's a big fucking L on my part. I'll have to double check though.
What?
We've been using those names to honor the Bible.
Well, yeah, using those names to honor the Bible after the fact, not people that were in it.
Where do you think we got the names from then? Those are Hebrew names.
From
They're Aramaic
Catholic churches after the fact who were making and bringing the Bible together, who had to give them names.
I think I might have actually looked it up in this debate. We'll have to
Here's the thing,
see.
like I said, you said it was centuries later, which that's wrong. What you're probably thinking about is the manuscripts that were the main manuscripts we use today are from the second to fourth century, which would still be within like 150 years of Christ. But it's still valid evidence, and you can see.
I don't see it as valid evidence if they never even witnessed it to begin with. They heard it from somebody who heard it from somebody. 50 years after, you said yourself.
Okay, there's this war that happened that Josephus, a historian, a Jewish historian in the 1st century, is widely believed by scholars. Oh, this is true, and what happened? And guess what? Josephus wrote that 40 years after the war.
He wrote
So
what?
Some history is okay when it's written 40 years later, and then when it has God, they're like, oh, it's written 40 years later. We can't take it as facts.
Because
It's dishonest, bro.
what's it called? Extraordinary evidence requires extraordinary. I mean, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and hearsay is not really extraordinary evidence
How did you say though?
because they heard it from somebody else.
They didn't though. There are eyewitness records.
The people who wrote who wrote the gospel are eyewitnesses.
They're not eyewitnesses, by the way.
So Peter, and John, yes.
And the other two?
Mark and Luke were historians who compiled together the evidence and wrote their own accounts of the gospel.
I'm not really sure that's the case. They were all written after the fact, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, but that doesn't make them not true. A lot of the majority.
Well, did you just say that they were written after the fact? Did any of them actually witness it? Did any of them actually witness the resurrection of Jesus?
Yes.
And you can confirm that how?
Based off eyewitness records, based on historical accounts, based on manuscripts written.
Which
from
one?
captives, Josephus.
Outside of the gospel, what other actual evidence is there that God
Josephus,
resurrected?
A Roman historian and a Jewish historian who both deny the accounts. We have pagan accounts of it. Like we have non-Christian accounts of the crucifixion.
We have
and it's
references towards the fact that Jesus existed, but I don't believe we have anything that actually specifically confirms Jesus rose from the dead.
What about, so would it sound crazy if there were books written 700 years before Jesus writing in extreme detail what Jesus comes to do, and then it lines up perfectly with what Jesus does? Does that seem a little out of the ordinary?
Well, how do you know which one happened with Jesus if all 4 books had conflicting accounts about what happened?
That's where I fucking dropped the ball. I should not have brought up conflicting accounts. I should have brought it back to whatever your book says could be interpreted a bunch of different ways. You can do a Nostradamus thing where you change what they say and kind of stretch the logic, as I said. I should not have gone down the biblical contradictions route because, as you'll see, I end up scrambling to try to look up contradictions on the spot, and I severely underestimated how biblically literate this guy is. Or more like common sense logic kind of thing. I scrambled hard on this.
They had stuff about zombies in them, apparently? Which one was that?
Can you tell me which views are conflicting? Because you're saying that the gospel.
This is where I drop. It's
Let me look
super
up the
bad.
From a scholar.
Let me look
Show
it up.
evidence.
Let me look it up. This is Alex O'Connor thing specifically.
Refutation of it.
I should have stopped there. I should have just told him to refer to Alex O'Connor and just relied on like more cosmological arguments rather than scripture. Oh my gosh.
I hope you give me the one about Pilate, because that's
Let's
pretty
see.
good.
Here's here's like 3 of them.
It is so hard listening. It's so hard going back to this, by the way. It is super hard going back to listening to me fumble the ball on this hard, especially with like the power of hindsight. Oh my gosh.
Resurrection appearances, differing accounts exist regarding who first saw the resurrected
I
Jesus.
don't want to watch this, by the way, but I want to also show you guys that I'm not necessarily like a debate god. I've had fucking issues. I've dropped the ball on like very rookie mistakes. This is a very rookie mistake that I made. Crap, man. It's just so fucking hard for me to watch.
Whether there was 1 or 2 angels at the tomb and the exact time and location of Jesus' appearances to his disciples, the calling of the disciples, there are variations in the stories of how Jesus called his first disciples, such as Andrew bringing his brother Simon to Jesus in John's Gospel versus the fisherman being called directly by Jesus in the Synoptic Gospels, Jesus' return to Egypt. Matthew describes Jesus and his family fleeing to Egypt and returning to Nazareth, while Luke places the return to Nazareth immediately after Jesus' birth with different details about the journey and location of Jesus' childhood name. We can look up other ones as well. I'm right in front of my computer if you want, and I can go through a whole list.
So how do any of those deny the account, though? Those are like small little nitpicks. And you do realize we don't think that the Gospels are perfect. They're man-made. They're written by men, but divinely inspired by God. But let's say this did happen, and John said that Jesus went to Nazareth.
Well, if it happened, then all 4 of them should line up, right? Why are there contradictions?
That's not none of those were contradictions.
Let's see. Who was it that discovered the empty tomb after Jesus' resurrection?
Even if he's wrong on saying none of those are contradictions, which I believe they still are, the issue is I have never heard of any of these before, and as you could see, I was literally scrambling at the time to be able to read whatever article I could grab onto, and I didn't internalize the contradictions enough to be able to explain why they're contradictions. So he pushed me really hard on that, rightfully so, because it is not my area of expertise, and I went there anyways, like I said.
John says it was Mary Magdalene. Matthew says it was Mary Magdalene and the other Mary. Mark says it was Mary Magdalene, the mother of James and Salome. Luke says it was a whole group of people who discovered it.
So they said a whole group of people are married?
Let's see here.
How does that contradict each other's views, though?
I'm sorry. How does that contradict each other's views when different groups of people apparently found it? 4 different accounts of who found Jesus' tomb empty.
They all agree that they found it empty. So what makes that wrong?
The fact that there's differing amounts of people who found it. Shouldn't all 4 stories say that only one person, the same person, found it, rather than this story saying it was one person, this story saying it's a whole group of people, this story saying it's 3 people? Which one is correct and why?
Okay, let's say that.
No, let's address that first of all.
Okay, do you think that if 4 people saw a crime happen and they would all report in perfect detail with perfect examination of what happened in the event?
Yes, they would line up.
So let's say there's a crowd of people. Well, this doesn't happen, though. This actually doesn't happen. You're being disingenuous, bro.
I don't think I'm really being disingenuous personally. If all 4 people saw the same event and then they all describe generally the same things, if
That
all
was
4 of
generally
these,
the same thing. That's a very, very tiny contradiction that you're saying. And
a
that's
very,
not
very
even-
tiny contradiction is who found the tomb? Really?
Who found the tomb? You said that the majority of them say Mary, and then one said some other people.
No,
That some other person.
1 second. Let me double check real quick. John says it was Mary Magdalene. Matthew says it was Mary Magdalene and the other Mary. Mark says it was Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome. And Luke says it was a whole group of people. I can read the specific verses if you really want me to.
I hung up way too much on this, dude. I should have just I shouldn't have even gone down this route because, again, I wasn't familiar with any of this. I was looking it up on the spot. But, yeah, we kind of hang on this for a little bit. But I'm going to just sit through the whole thing anyways, just so you guys can kind of see how not to handle a topic where you're just not well informed. Do not go looking stuff up on the fly, because if you haven't internalized the arguments, you're going to look like a fucking idiot like I did.
So
So
those
you're
are
all
4
agreeing
different.
that Mary Magdalene was the first to see it, but some
Luke says it was a whole group of
Magdalene
people. He didn't say Mary Magdalene.
Okay, well, Mary Magdalene would be a part of that whole group of people. It's kinda
So
common
just
sense,
because
then.
they have one single person in common means that it's true. What
Do you
about the
want
other
to make a
people?
definition of contradiction?
Where
'Cause
do
how
the
does
other
that
people
contradict?
come from?
There was a big group of people there when that happened. You do realize, right? So how does that
Not according to
contradict?
John.
Okay, read me in John where it says that there wasn't a group of people.
Now on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene came early to the tomb while it was still dark, and say the stone already taken away from the tomb. Where's the group of people?
You read a single verse, okay?
Well, yes, I'm looking at it right here. And then Luke says it was a whole lot of group of people. Specifically, he said, "Now the women who had come with him out of Galilee followed and saw the tomb and how his body was laid. Then they returned and prepared spices and perfumes. And on the Sabbath they rested according to the commandment. But on the first day of the week at early dawn they came to the tomb, bringing spices, which they prepared. And they found the stone rolled away from the tomb. But when they entered, they did not find the body of Jesus. Now they were Mary Magdalene and Joanna and Mary the mother of James. Also the other women with them were telling these things to the apostles." The fucking contradiction, by the way, I should have noticed, is that they both said they came early to the tomb. But who came early to the tomb first is the thing. Where were they in John's book? I should have pointed that out specifically. I don't really think I did, but we'll have to double check.
Those are different perspectives. How does that contradict?
I'm
There's a
sorry.
difference between perspective and contradiction.
Those contradict because who found the tomb first? Was it a group of people or was it a single person? I can't really go. I can't go in circles all day on this, man.
Okay, let me just give you some common sense here. All right, let me get the verses for you.
Like
It
who
was
found
around
it first?
here.
Was it Mary or was it a whole group of people? Which one was it?
I think it's around here or within the next 5 minutes where I was getting angry to the point where I literally had my finger over the kick button on TikTok just because it was going in circles. He was kind of cornering me on the fact that I didn't internalize this. I wasn't fast enough to be able to analyze these verses and point out specifically where the contradiction is on the spot, which I should have been able to do, but I was also mentally tired at the time, just kind of like a clarification. When it says, came early to the tomb for John, when it's Mary Magdalene, she came early to the tomb, but also these guys came early to the tomb at early dawn. So
No, you tell me.
they all came when the sun rose. I should have said that. Fucking hell, son of a bitch. Looking back at it, I really should have fucking pointed that out. Let's just continue playing while I rub my
You tell me,
eyeballs.
was it a whole group of people or was it one single person or was it 3 people or 2 people? Which one?
Look,
Who found it?
Matthew 28 verse 1.
I want a single answer. I don't. I
Mary
want.
going to the tomb, right?
What was that?
And angel. So Matthew 28 verse 1, it mentions Mary Magdalene and the other Mary going to the tomb, and angels roll the stone away and speak to them. Mark 16 verses 1 to 8 mentions Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome. They find the stone rolled away and see a young man in white, which they think obviously an angel. Luke 24 verses 1 to 10 mentions Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and other women. They see 2 men in dazzling clothes. They think angels, obviously. John 20 verses 1 to 2 focus on Mary Magdalene alone at first. She finds the stone rolled away and runs to tell Peter and John. Later in the verses, she returns and sees 2 angels and the risen Jesus. So they have different focuses. How does that mean contradiction? John focuses
Who
on
found
Mary
it
Magdalene's
first?
personal experience.
Who found it
Matthew and
first?
Mark-
I really don't want to go
Who's-
in the
who's
circles on
claiming
this, man.
When does it claim to find him first? Why are you making it such a big issue of who finds it first?
Because it's a contradiction. Okay, I really can't go in circles on this all day,
Then
man.
you're
I
ignorant.
really,
What is-
I really.
Yeah,
can't
I
go in
think it
circles
was
on
right here where I started contemplating kicking him. Again, I should have pointed out that they all found him. Each book, like I said, as I pointed out, each of them said that they found Jesus's tomb empty at early dawn, so they were there around the same time. That's the contradiction there. But he was pushing me pretty hard to the point where I was starting to get really mad. Like I said, I think this is the part where I almost kicked him, but I ended up just conceding the entire point. Which, in hindsight, if I was more mentally prepared at the time, because I was debating this at the end of the day, which I shouldn't have done, I would have been able to point that out better. But right now, with the power of hindsight, yeah, I've completely fucking dropped the ball on this.
all day. I really don't want to go in circles on this all day. Do you want to go back to the abortion thing? Because
Contradiction, a combination of statement, ideas, or features of a situation that are opposed to one another.
yes, so if different people found it at the same time, if
Who's claiming that they found him first?
who found the tomb first? That's all I'm asking.
It doesn't matter.
Yes, it does. It does matter. Yes, it does, because the story should be straight, no matter who's been, should be the same across all 4 books.
No one's saying that it needs to be someone first in order for it to be.
Well,
right.
yeah, otherwise there's different conflicting accounts and there's contradictions, and then you have the whole issue of who's right, who's wrong, why should I believe it?
Contradicts?
What was that?
Can you explain to me how it?
Okay, yeah, dude, I really can't go all day on this, man. I'm sorry. I don't know what to.
You need to open your heart to Christ, brother.
Okay, well, other than that, I really don't know what else to say about that, man.
Yeah,
If
that's
your
where
friend
I'm
says that
starting
he
to
saw you in the morning and your
contemplate
other friend
kicking
says he
him.
saw you in
It's
the afternoon,
That's not what happened. No,
okay,
no,
then
no.
Who saw you first? Who saw you first? Like, that makes no sense, dude. Your argument makes no sense.
Okay, well, I don't know what to say about that. Sorry, man.
You're not looking.
It's, religion isn't my strong suit, to be clear, but I'm pretty sure you'd have to ask Alex O'Connor about that, admittedly. So
Yeah, that's where I ended up just folding because it's like, dude's just going in circles. I didn't internalize what I read enough to be able to point out that they all saw him apparently around the same time with varying groups of people. So I just ended up flunking and just completely conceding that entire portion of the debate.
I will admit
Well,
that.
you need to open your heart to God and you need to read the Word, brother.
Well, you got to give me evidence. We can go back to the bigger point about whether the Bible is verifiable or not, though.
Okay, I'm gonna read you a verse and I want you to tell me who you think it's talking about. Okay?
I don't really care who it's talking about.
So you're disingenuous. You can't even listen.
Why does it matter? That's not evidence.
I just want to read it to you, brother.
Okay.
Can you tell me who you think this is? Okay. Surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering. Yet we considered him punished by God, stricken by him, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. We
Jesus?
are all like sheep have gone away. Yeah, you said Jesus, right?
Yeah, I'm aware of
This
that.
was written 700 years before Jesus. How do you explain that?
I would have to verify it to double check to be sure.
That's the book of Isaiah. It was written 700 years before Jesus.
I would have to
We
double
have
check.
historical evidence.
Like I said, I should have just said that I shouldn't have cared at all about that. I shouldn't have gone down this whole tree, honestly.
You can Google it.
But yeah, you could tell I'm completely out of my depth when it comes to this kind of stuff, and I shouldn't have gone down that.
Okay, and there's still no proof that the actual story happened to begin with, like I said, outside the
I
Bible.
can give you like 50 different verses from other books, all talking about Jesus. So
Okay.
Again, the big thing is there's like 40,000 different interpretations of the Bible. And the whole thing about the Bible is that it's constantly changing its interpretations of various verses to be able to fit whatever thing comes its way. Like if aliens end up existing somehow, they're gonna find a way to be able to not find any kind of contradiction between aliens existing and Christianity, for instance, and stuff like that, right? And it's just not something I'm prepared for, unfortunately.
Well-
explain, like, okay, so let's be logical here. We have all these people who claim to be prophets, who claim to speak to angels, and the angels all coincide with the story of Jesus, and they're all hundreds of years apart from different prophets who never met each other and who have no idea what the other one wrote. So how do you
The
explain
fact
this?
that Christianity also plagiarizes other religions like Zoroastrianism and stuff like that, honestly.
So that would be a critique of Judaism.
Well,
But-
where did Christianity come from? Isn't it a subsect of Judaism, or didn't it start that way?
Well, it's always been Christian, but the whole thing is, if you could look at that, so there are other people who claim to see God and they believe in that. We could talk about that whole thing, but the main thing is that doesn't refute what I just said. You're not focusing on that. We can talk about why Zoroastrianism, whatever it's called, is not true.
Okay.
Tell me,
Oh,
tell
okay,
me the
that-
belief of it then.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Tell me the belief of it.
The belief of it? I'm talking more generally about the certain specifics. Like I said, I didn't prepare for a religion debate. I'm sorry. I will completely admit that. That's on my end.
Yeah, I shouldn't have even brought up Zoroastrianism. I'm vaguely familiar with Zoroastrianism and the things that Christianity borrows from it, but it was something that I looked into maybe a month prior, and I only remembered the religion's name. I didn't actually remember the specifics outside of maybe a couple of things. So, plus there is a whole argument on whether the Bible is divinely inspired, which means it can take stuff from other religions and plagiarize and still be completely fine because it's divinely inspired. That's a whole other debate to be able to have that I'm not equipped to have, unfortunately. So
I'll concede the religion debate.
But here's the thing, though. There's so much excruciating detail from so many other accounts, and then you have the eyewitness accounts that all add up and that all corroborate the same exact
Well, you're
thing.
talking about the eyewitness account of cultists, right?
They're not cultists.
They literally are cultists. Every religion starts out as a cult. An apocalyptic belief about this guy who's resurrecting from the dead, who's going to be coming back during the apocalypse and stuff. That sounds like cult behavior.
Okay, well then we have proof of it though.
We have the documentation within the Bible, which I don't,
We have
as far as I'm aware,
documentation.
hasn't been verified by any independent sources. But we can go all day on this. Like I said, I'll concede that I shouldn't have gone into religion very much since that's not my strong suit. So
Okay, well the Bible.
Yeah,
is religious
that was pretty
study,
much the
and
only
it's-
thing I could do at that point. It was either that or kick him from the live stream, which I really didn't want to do, and I ultimately, like you see, decided not to do because I've been kicked from a bunch of live streams myself, and the last thing I want to do is be like all the other TikTok debaters, be intellectually dishonest and disingenuous like he's trying to portray me as. If I was truly disingenuous, right, I would have kicked him a long time ago because he is pretty aggressive.
he did catch me on some issues regarding my internalization of biblical contradictions. If I was disingenuous, he would have been long gone. But I kept him around. I conceded the debate. And the thing is, for the first half or so of this video, I was doing pretty well with everything regarding my specialties within my frame of egoism and stuff like that. But yeah, once it got onto his field, I completely dropped the ball. So
historical figures.
well, yeah, I mean, of course it has stuff in there. Of course it has stuff in there that's going to line up with some of history.
Story.
What was that?
We have archaeological evidence of things that happen and events where it's just disingenuous. To
Well,
be
you have that in other
disingenuous.
stuff too. Like you have Noah's, the flood of the earth from Noah's Ark and a couple other religions as well, like Islam, don't you?
Yeah, I can tell you why Islam's wrong. It's pretty easy.
Well, I mean, I don't really like Islam either, to be clear. So we don't really have to go down that route.
Yeah, well, there's only one true religion. There's other religions that are either man-made or they want to turn God into their own thing. Like you could maybe believe, oh, maybe God's real.
Christianity is man-made too, by the way. It's an Abrahamic religion. All three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, come from one specific source.
But I'm just gonna live for myself because I
That's fine.
care about myself. But that's not the truth. The truth is that Christ is king. That you really.
Well, I need to actually see evidence of that personally. Like that, I'm not an atheist, to be clear. I'm withholding judgment for either side until I see actual evidence of it with my own eyes, not just words on a paper.
Okay, well,
So-
it's not about just being. It's not all. Life's not all about eyesight.
Okay, well, maybe not to you.
Let's say it's like a GPS. You feel in your heart, I should turn to the left. But I don't see that I should turn to the left with my eyes, so I'm just gonna ignore it.
Well, like I said, I spent over a decade trying to find Jesus and stuff like that. And while I
I
don't
think
remember
this
every
is
single
where it
aspect
kind of
of
just goes into like personal stuff. Let me see here real quick. Because we just kind of go into why I'm not religious and stuff like that, I believe. The whole entire debate will be listed below. I'm just kind of going over where specifically I dropped the ball regarding this. I just wanted to kind of go over that video because, for one, a lot of people wanted to see it according to my community poll. Second of all, I want to show that I am not a debate god. I don't really have any former credentials. I've just been doing this for like over half a decade. I still make mistakes, especially when I'm mentally exhausted. And I kind of want to show that side because a lot of people these days want to act like they're know-it-alls. They want to act like they're debate gods, they're debate lords. Oh, I've never lost a debate. Personally, I'm not like that. As you just saw, I completely fumbled that one. And even if you want to watch the whole thing and say I did pretty well before and after that part where I conceded like 15 minutes of debate, the big issue, especially with debate culture these days, is the fact that when it comes to debate culture, people will only walk away remembering certain parts of a debate, especially if somebody openly concedes something. So if you spend like a large portion, maybe a third of an entire debate focused on one thing, and you completely flunk on that one thing, then that's what everybody's going to walk away remembering. They're not going to walk away remembering your good points. So even if you're dominating like 70% of the debate, people only remember that 30% and everybody thinks you lost. I've seen this happen before with certain individuals. I'm not going to give any kind of names. I don't want to send any kind of hate or anything or like diss anybody when it comes to that kind of stuff. But it's just something I've seen very frequently where they don't admit any kind of fault. They think they completely dominated debate, but then everybody thinks that they lost because of that one point, like I did here. I think maybe I'm just super hard on myself. I don't really know. But personally, for me, that's probably my biggest L I have recorded currently when it comes to documented debates and stuff like that. Maybe some people will disagree. Maybe some people will think I did pretty well, especially at the beginning and possibly near the end. You'll have to go watch that for yourself. I'll leave it linked in the description below. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to go over that, show I'm still a person at the end of the day, show that anybody can make rookie mistakes like I did, and kind of try to improve going forward from there. Which I think I did, because there was another Christian debate I did about maybe a couple weeks to a few weeks after this. I do have it on my channel. You'll see that. Let me actually bring it up real quick. I think it's this one right here specifically where I end up improving from my mistakes. I end up going at it with a couple Christians in that one right here. You can go watch that later. I end up learning from my mistakes. It almost goes into that kind of realm again, but I don't bring it to that realm. I say, let's keep it over here. And yeah, other than that, I don't really have much else to say. I just kind of wanted to go over this for the video just because people wanted it. And like I said, I just want to show that I'm a person and all that kind of stuff. So like, subscribe, share the video and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I will see you guys later, I guess.